Before we go too far from Doomsday, Chris Evans, who plays Steve Rogers, the former Captain America, and who is coming back despite his ending in Avengers Endgame, who is coming back as the lead in Doomsday, has talked about the absurd level of secrecy where he was given a script where his character was never even mentioned, and they had to tell him, okay, when this character is mentioned on this page, we're talking about you. And that was how he had to learn his...
Well, howdy, everyone. If it's Friday, it's time for another Entertainment Expose. Right here with your hosts, Scott Fullerton and David Reddish. David, how's everything out California way?
I'm doing well. It's another blazing hot day here in Los Angeles.
Little warm. We're not as bad in Ohio. We've had some thunderstorms, so it's kept it to mid-70s, but the humidity is on the rise with that same rain. But as you can see, I got my Band-Aid out, though. I am now melanoma cancer-free.
Yay.
Just a little bit of a divot. So thanks for all the listeners that have been thinking of me. I appreciate all the great warm wishes, but we are back at it. Lots of simple news, I guess I would call it, in the news this week. Nothing too exciting going on out there. What do you have on your hit parade first?
Well, to follow up on last week's breaking story about Perez Hilton self-harming and then ending up in the hospital, he is still in the hospital and has temporarily lost custody of his children, who are now in the custody of his mother. He did go along with this. This was not something that was government mandated. They asked him to do it, and he did comply without objection, apparently. He also, we have since learned, his sister, his niece, and his kids were all at home when he was cutting himself with a serrated knife. I made the mistake, Scott, of when I was researching this story, running across the footage of him live streaming when he was cutting himself. And it's like, you don't want to know what it looks like. It's truly, truly horrifying. This is someone, as we discussed last week, Perez Hilton is not a healthy person. And in my view, never really has been, given his choices that he's made in his career. That may sound like a strange thing to say, but when you build a career out of bullying and innuendo and gossip and defaming people, there's something wrong with you. So a lot of celebrities have come out to say they hope he gets well soon. And by the way, he was terrible to us at the time. I know he's going to require some minor surgery, and it looks like he will be hospitalized for some time. Don't rush to get out of the hospital, Perez. Please focus on getting better, and the rest of us will go on without you, and we'll be happy. Just saying.
Well said, my friend. Yeah, I have been following up on it a bit. Like I said, he has been a friend of my other interview show a couple of times, but not off. We discussed his problematicness right in the beginning. Every time he's been on the show. And I'm purposely not looking for the footage. Like I said, I've talked to his sister quite a few times in the past. His mom has been around there to take care of the kids often, so it's not like there's any estrangement there, thank goodness. So they will be able to get along and be a smooth transition that way. And as you said, he's not made the most easiest career to be friends with, right? He's brought a lot of people down along the time, and I know I think I saw one of the Supernatural guys kind of had to take back his, I hope you're feeling better, because they didn't realize how problematic he had become. And so, it's a sad thing. You never wish harm on anyone.
No.
But you also have to acknowledge people's shortcomings in the past. And so I'm glad you did that. Yeah. Well, we wish him well, and hopefully he will get the help that he needs mentally wise to take care of it. And like you said, I heard there is going to be some work needed through a couple of operations to get things back as well. So we wish him well, but we also hope that he kind of learns from this. And he has been better, I will say better, over the past few years since his kids were born. But
that's not a very high bar to clear. Let's be honest here. We don't want him to suffer, but at the same time, we're not talking about somebody who is a very nice person. And yes, his behavior had improved in recent years, but I don't know that in the view of the people he targeted for so many years prior to that, I don't know if that makes up for anything. I don't know if in the eyes of the audience, our audience, his audience, any audience, that somehow makes him better or excuses what he's done. So yes, I wish the best for his children. Hopefully someone is looking after them and raising them well while he takes care of his mental health.
Well said, my friend. Nothing exciting in the box office this week. Spider-Man came in at number one for the second week in a row, as expected. Another 145 million domestically. The Odyssey still holding in there at second place, 31.5 million domestically. Two new films broke the top five. Number three, One Night Only, with a meager 5.7, and Super Troopers 3. Well, you needed that third one at $4 million domestically, knocked the animals and the kids out of the running, but nothing surprising in there. Just a good overall box office. They're looking to meet or exceed 2023's $10 million summer. We'll see what happens. Anything new you learned about box office this week?
I mean, not particularly. I did finally last night see my friend who's been screening the Odyssey an innumerable number of times in 70 millimeters since it opened in whatever that was, June. I mean, he's barely been able to poke his head out. So he's one of the few projectionists in the world who actually is qualified to project 70 millimeter film. It's a very, very delicate process. It requires special training. So every time a Christopher Nolan movie comes out, he disappears for months at a time because he's one of the handful of people that actually knows how to project the thing. So I'm happy that he's working. I'm happy that he's breathing. He is expected to be doing this through at least next month because the Odyssey keeps getting extended. The 70 millimeter showings keep getting extended. And I still have not seen the movie, everybody, because I can't get a damn ticket in this city. It is out of control. And, good for Christopher Nolan, good for Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland and Lupita Nyong'o and everybody involved in this thing. Good for them. They have an old-fashioned hit, and it proves people will still go see cinema if they're not being fed some junk, just the next one in the franchise kind of thing. People like epics. People like great filmmakers, and Christopher Nolan is leading the pack there, which is fantastic. There's also been talk that Spider-Man will go into IMAX, though it's not entirely clear how that will even be possible, because we know the Odyssey will be in IMAX at least through, I believe, the end of September, the beginning of October, if I am not mistaken. That was the scuttlebutt I heard last night. There's talk of further extending it because every IMAX showing is sold out, like all hours of the day, every single day. It's unbelievable. I like I say, I still can't get a ticket, and it's driving me nuts. I'm dying to see the thing. As far as Spider-Man goes, it has legs, 8 legs, if you will. So good on them for having such a strong hit. Maybe this is a sign that people are getting over Marvel fatigue. But as we talked about last week, I think it's just that people really like Spider-Man. I don't know that it's people are craving more Marvel. I think people really like Spider-Man the way they really like Batman. And Batman seems to be immune to all the problems that the DC movies had, the other DC movies had. So we'll see what happens in the lead up to Avengers Doomsday this December, which maybe that is a good opening. Doomsday pre-sales are out of control already. And Marvel is still quite bitter that they were not able to book IMAX theaters because both The Odyssey and Dune Part 3 had already booked them. So they're trying to come up with ways to increase the ticket cost for people going to see Doomsday because they know it's a surefire hit. And this ill-defined Infinity Vision, it's like, well, what does that even entail? Like, does that mean no one's quite sure? And it doesn't seem like it's going to be very much, maybe some sound tweaks, but nothing really beyond that. At the same time, pre-sales are going very, very strong, and tickets for non-Infinity Vision are expected to go on sale this weekend to coincide with D23, the big Disney convention that happens down in Anaheim every year. This year is expected to be very, very Marvel-centric, very focused on Doomsday and Secret Wars and the X-Men, which I guess we'll get to them a little bit in a moment. Before we go too far from Doomsday, Chris Evans, who plays Steve Rogers, the former Captain America, and who is coming back despite his ending in Avengers Endgame, who is coming back as the lead in Doomsday, has talked about the absurd level of secrecy where he was given a script where his character was never even mentioned. And they had to tell him, okay, when this character is mentioned on this page, we're talking about you. And that was how he had to learn his lines. That's how he had to learn what was going on. And of course, everything's constantly being rewritten anyway in a Marvel movie. So good on him for being a good sport. I mean, at this point, he's one of the OGs, so he's probably used to it. But it takes a certain amount of good sport to say, okay, I'm just going to go show up and say the line and hope my performance makes sense down the line as we reshoot and rewrite this thing ad nauseum until release day.
Yeah, I did see a couple interviews with him saying that there was very secretive around it. He said the Russo brothers love to beat him up when he's filming. He says he's battered and bruised already from it, but he's enjoying every second of it. But yeah, lots of secrecy involved. To get back to the Spider-Man all, we said last week that we would talk about the lady in red this week. I did see it. I don't know what's going on with Ohio. I don't know if it's just their first run or we just have stopped going to the movies. But I told you for the Odyssey, I went week 2 for a 2:00 matinee, and there was 10 other people in the audience. I went to Spider-Man Saturday at 1:30, second weekend, and I was the only person in the audience for Spider-Man for that one. So I don't know why they're not, it's still getting big numbers, but not from Northeast Ohio for sure. But I did enjoy the film. So let's talk a little bit about Miss Red and everything and the arrival of Jean Grey. What did you think?
Sadie Sink playing Jean Grey. Well, I alluded to this a little bit last week, but one of my objections to the movie, which in general I liked and thought was pretty successful, it's interesting to play her as a villain. I have a theory about this that I'll get to in a minute because this also came up in the course of conversation yesterday. I've never seen Jean Grey approached that way or written that way where she's that bitter, unless of course she's possessed by the Phoenix Force, which is a whole long X-Men soap opera we don't have to completely dissect right now. I've never seen her powers portrayed that way, where she's constantly sort of leaping consciousness from person to person. Jean, historically, in her early introductions, is not that powerful of a mutant. That happens later on. But that was also the reason she became such a powerful mutant later on, was because for 15 or 20 years, she'd been portrayed as the chick, the hot, weak ex-woman who could barely lift a book with her mind. And Chris Claremont, brilliant X-Men writer, said, well, what if we make her the most powerful mutant? Then how does that change the dynamic? And you end up with great stories that way. So I understand that the movie's trying to draw parallels between the way Spider-Man is coping with his mutation, and maybe it's getting a little bit out of control in ways he didn't anticipate, to her, who has this powerful mutation and who has been ostracized and had her family sort of tortured and ruined by it. It's a very dark introduction to the character. And as someone that likes when the Spider-Man movies get darker, I honestly thought this was maybe a little too dark, not necessarily for Spider-Man, but for Jean. It's a problem of the Marvel movies generally that I know what many defenders of the film would say to that, which is, well, we need to see where her character is going. Obviously, they're going to develop her down the road in the new X-Men movies, and that is true. However, for this film, the problem with that is it doesn't feel like it's a complete story in that way. It feels like, okay, it's just, there's more coming. Not even in the way that, when the Lord of the Rings movies came out back in the early 2000s, I remember people complaining about, but it's not a complete story, but it's like the movie is just stopped. They don't have an ending. And it's like, well, it's one big story, and they at least give you something resembling some kind of conclusion to the mini plot they've given you. But that was also, things progressed and we knew they were going somewhere and we knew we were going to get to an end point. With this, the end point is probably, with no exaggeration, 30 years away. They want the new X-Men cast to play these parts for the next 30 years, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable, even though I guess if you consider, Robert Downey Jr. started playing Iron Man back in 2008, he's about to now play Dr. Doom in 2026. That's almost 20 years. So, but that's also not playing the same character. And I guess if you look at the original X-Men coming back, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsden, etc., they've been playing these characters for 25 years, which is also kind of amazing given that they're now in their 80s doing it. Marvel, in casting the new X-Men, they want these actors for at least the next 30 years. So they will very likely be playing these characters into their 70s and 80s, but the actors are only in their 20s now. Like, Lord knows what this is actually going to look like in the long term. But that's a long and meandering answer to your question. I didn't feel like they really nailed Jean Grey exactly. I like some of the ideas that are sort of set up in that, but On the whole, the inclusion of Punisher and Hulk also are kind of responsible for this. It feels like it's a little too disparate. It feels a little too padded out, and the Jean Grey portrayal just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I think it's hard when it's part of another movie, right? I think
Yeah,
the X-Men movies had a very good logical beginning, middle, end, right? Even the origin story where
yeah,
they found Jean in her parents' house and everything still had a logical end, and even Phoenix Reborn that had a good start to it and everything. This is in the middle of another movie, right? So I think it was very hard for it to really do a cohesiveness to a story for her when it wasn't about her. But it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I loved Tom Holland's performance overall. I
yes, he's very
liked
good.
the ending as far as his friend Ned went. I'm guessing, and spoiler alert here, where the ending scene of what seems like Jean driving into all of these foliage, that foliage looks very upper New York, Massachusetts
Yeah,
to me. So we'll see what happens. That's what the foliage looks like. And I really hated waiting until the end for that really lousy end scene credit, if I have to be honest with you. But other than that, I enjoyed the movie overall. But you're right, the Jean Grey of it was a little unsatisfying for different reasons. Not that it was a portrayal was bad, but just different reasons.
yeah. It's also not clear when we will be seeing this incarnation of Jean again, if that will somehow be in Doomsday, if it will be in Secret Wars, or if it will be something after that. Obviously, as we've talked about many times, the original cast of X-Men, Famke Janssen, who plays Jean Grey in the original X-Men cast, notwithstanding, the original X-Men are back in Doomsday, and presumably also some of them in Secret Wars, if not all of them. So we will see how this sort of rings out. We have had casting news on the X-Men front because
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
the X-Men are going to be the new backbone of the MCU. We now have Kit Carson from Heartstopper is the new Scott Summers Cyclops, in addition to Sadie Sink playing Jean Grey. We have Samara Wiley. No, not Samara Wiley. Oh, Samara Weaving. There it is. Samara Weaving, very talented, beautiful woman. She's the new Emma Frost. Interesting that they are including her in the new lineup. And we just got word late yesterday that Charles Melton of the film May December, very good actor, turned down the role of Hank McCoy, the Beast.
Right.
So, which is interesting because I was told they all had to audition for these parts. So if he actually went in and tested for it, that's very interesting to me. I think he would have been interesting casting in the role. We still don't know who are playing Magneto and Professor X yet.
Right.
Word did get out last week that Christopher Abbott from the TV series Girls has screen tested for Professor X. That's interesting because he's in his early 40s. And of course, Xavier and Magneto are supposed to be significantly older than the
Right.
20-something cast members. Even if we're somehow supposed to buy them as being 18, Xavier and Magneto should not be below 50, in my view. So we'll see where they go with it. My feeling on this, Scott, is they really perfected it first time out of the gate with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. And not just because they're both great actors, but because they're Shakespearean actors. Their chemistry together, they understood each other's acting styles. They understood the subtext of the characters they were playing. And they had gravitas from years and years of doing these great Shakespearean dramas on stage. They knew how to sell it with complete conviction, where you looked at this person and you were just intimidated by his power. That is what those characters need, because they are both huge, huge leaders in these two gigantic movements within the Marvel universe. So my view is that they maybe should be looking to stage actors. They should be looking to Shakespearean actors in their late 40s, early 50s to try
Right.
and find the new Xavier and Magneto. But it's not clear exactly what they're doing. If they're looking at television and sort of up-and-comers in the movies, that could be a major mistake. That's not to say James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender were bad in the young, the X-Men First Class
Sure.
cast, the younger cast. I thought they were good, but neither of them, and this was particularly detrimental to McAvoy, his Charles Xavier just seemed like a jerk a lot of the time, like just an arrogant prick. He didn't have, and that's because he didn't have the weight. Patrick Stewart's Xavier could do something that was kind of dickish, but you always felt like he had this benevolence about him. And that's because of the gravitas. Those characters need that in order for this to work in the long term. So Kevin Feige, if you're watching, just saying, there have been rumors for some time that Adam Driver is involved in this, that he's either the new Magneto, which would be absolutely 100%. He's absolutely wrong for the part. He's not in any way, apart from the fact that he's Jewish. That's about where it begins and ends for him when it comes to Magneto. There are also rumors that he's the villain, Mr. Sinister. I could see that a little bit better, but I also think he's wrong for that role, particularly the way Sinister is now portrayed as this kind of effete, feminine, scheming villain. To me, it's like Billy Porter would be incredible in this. Like John Cameron Mitchell, like someone get them on the phone. But we will see what happens. I would expect a lot more casting. Ironically, as this is probably going to air, we would probably have new casting news because D23 is expected to be very, very Marvel heavy, where we learn more about the new X-Men cast and more about Doomsday.
Yeah, well said. I agree with all of that. I'm giving the casting a pass until we see what I was not a huge fan, although I think he's an amazing actor, but I didn't see Nicholas Hoult as the Beast at all when he was first, and he did a fantastic job with it. He's a great actor overall, but I just did not see him in that role. I do like Kit Connors as far as looks wise with Jean Grey. I think they look, I don't know, same thing. Cyclops is such a old before his time character. I don't know. I see Kit playing that as much, but overall, you just kind of got to wait and see what they do with it. So I think you have some head-on good advice there for him. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, Hollywood would be in a much better state if people just got me on the phone. I'm just saying.
There you go. Right.
Can be done, people.
And of course, we know that they must be listening. We're on speed dial for Kevin, so he can call us anytime.
Yeah, many things I'd like to say to him. I'm just saying.
There you go.
So we should also mention
next. Anything exciting? Well, along with casting news, we can talk about Heated Rivalry 2 for a second. We talked a little bit about that last week. They have cast Justice Smith and Charlie Gillespie as Harris and Troy. They were the leads of the 5th book, Role Model, in Rachel Reed's Heated Rivalry series. And they got a little blowback on their first casting. Rachel gave them a little supporting casting, saying a lot of people didn't necessarily like Ilya and Shane's casting, but they are going to be there as part of the leads on that. They will start filming very soon. They have been seen doing rehearsals in and around Toronto. But I'm not mad with that casting. I think it could be a good choice. I mean, I swear to God, I'm a teenage boy and teenage girl. I love Charlie Gillespie in Julie and the Phantoms on Disney Channel. He's a fun little actor, so we'll see what happens. But decent casting news.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Justice Smith myself. I've had a crush on him since I saw him in a show called Generation, which was not great and only ran one season on HBO, but it made me notice him as an actor in a way I never had before. He's also excellent in a film called I Saw the TV Glow, which for horror fans, queer horror, I'll save the gushing for later for October when we do our Halloween show, but definitely check that movie out because he's extremely good in it.
And an out and proud actor to boot. I mean, so which I like him to do. So fantastic.
Yes, marvelous.
What's next on your history, my friend?
On the subject of casting and on the subject of Nicholas Hoult, who played Beast in X-Men First Class, he was announced this week as the new Gilderoy Lockhart in the Harry Potter television series. HBO, despite everything going on with the Ellisons, is going full speed ahead with this new show, even though there's not a lot of great anticipation around it, because they want to do one season per year and make sure that the kids are the appropriate ages. They're going ahead with season 2 before season 1 even premieres. So we don't know where this is going to go in the long run. I personally, Scott, could see the show maybe going 2 or 3 seasons and being done. The first season will definitely air, which I wasn't always sure that it would. The second season, I think, will also air, but it may be similar to Starfleet Academy, where they had a 2-season guarantee. They shot the second season just to fulfill that and then canceled the show. It depends on how the new show does when it premieres on HBO later this year, of course. But like I say, even taking the problematic nature of J.K. Rowling out of it, I don't think anyone's clamoring for a new adaptation of the Harry Potter series. We have a great one already. Like what? And I love Jenna McTeer. I love John Lithgow. I love Nick Holt. I love the people that are involved with this.
Sure.
But it's woefully unnecessary. And so at best, it will be forgettable.
Yeah, very interesting. Also, in weird Potter news of the day, of course, they just rerouted a 580 million undersea power cable linking the UK and Ireland because Harry Potter fans discovered it would cut through Dobby's grave at Freshwater Beach in Wales, where in the film it was filmed and he was there. So, I mean, those Potter fans can be a little crazy, obviously. But a $580 million underwater cable project derailed due to Harry Potter fans. So who would have thunk, right?
That I hadn't heard. They know he's not real, right? I'm just asking. Good for them. Okay, good for Dobby. Good for all the people who want him more than a house elf. Spoiler alert. Okay, fine. Let's move on.
What do you have next? Anything exciting?
More X-Men news, actually. It seems like it's X-Men all the time this month. X-Men 97, our listeners will know we record this on Wednesdays ahead of the big Friday release. So the X-Men Season 2 finale, X-Men 97 Season 2 finale, has just dropped this morning. I have not watched it yet, and I'm now thinking I need to avoid social media for the rest of the day, which is really, really hard when I'm doing a news and politics show. Because I've already seen that one character who was notably absent turns up in this finale, and that it's teasing more adventures down the way. It also came out this week that Disney plans to, we will have guaranteed 4 seasons of X-Men 97. There are at least 2 more that are being written now that they're hard at work on. And as we've said before on the show, they're thinking through season 10. They want to do it for the next 10 years because it is the biggest animated show Marvel has ever done on Disney Plus. It's a big, big deal, which especially when you stop and you consider the cost of it, that the cost is relatively low compared to even, I think, the Star Wars animated shows where they try and bring in some of the leading talent. Its premiere, it does better than What If, which was meant to be the big Marvel, flagship animated show.
Yeah.
So we're going to be getting X-Men 97. Disney also this week pledged to yearly releases. So there will never be more than 1 year in between seasons of X-Men 97. Which I think is actually great news because we've talked about on the show before, the long waits between these seasons.
Right.
It seems like the studios are waking up to that pretty quickly and knowing, okay, we need to get these out a lot faster, no matter what it's going to take, because in the long run, we will make more money that way.
Yeah, definitely agreed on that for sure. I think, speaking of Disney, another kind of side note for creators out there, Disney is, and we know they're very stingy with their IP or have been for a long time, but with their new CEO, Josh D'Amaro in there, Disney and TikTok have inked a first of its kind deal that hands creators access to Disney's asset library. It puts their video rights inside of Disney Plus, and they're going to give them access to Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, FX, and more for creators who want to use this on the panels. And like we said, Disney is notoriously very hands in with their IPs. So it'll be interesting to see what creators start to do with it. I'm looking forward to that and see what we can get out of that.
I have a feeling there will be caveats that are as of yet unforeseen, much as with Disney Plus, which was guaranteeing the entire library of Disney material. Not only were things not always put up there, a lot was taken away over time and is now being cycled. Right. So it sounds too good to be true, in my view. The last little bit, and this relates to all the Marvel crap we're talking about right now, Avengers Endgame, which I thought was endless and an interminable movie that did absolutely nothing for me. I was so bored watching this, and people think it's the greatest Marvel movie ever. Please, people, it's barely a movie, it's a clip show.
The last 30 minutes was a good movie.
Well, 30 minutes out of 3 hours, people. And actually, I think even more than that, it was like 3:15. Whatever it was, it was not the sum of its parts. And it's going back into theaters now with additional scenes that are being filmed during Avengers Doomsday that are supposedly going to set up that movie, We don't know exactly what they are, but I have a notion, and it seems like other people agree with me, that this will be about Steve Rogers, Chris Evans' character, going back in time. And I think his living out of time, the way he used the Infinity Stones to sort of change history, that might be what starts off this collision of universes, all these incursions we hear about in the multiverse that Loki has been fighting in the Loki TV series. I think that's probably what we're getting, and that may explain why he ends up in another universe, because he's breaking the rules of space and time, which is allowing Doctor Doom to eventually come forward to destroy everybody. So,
And if you have an old Atari set, you can maybe figure it out, according to Spider-Man. We'll see what happens there. But good way to wrap it up. I don't have anything else on my hit parade. I will kind of tease that we're about a month away from TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival. Andrew Scott was just announced as one of the speakers for it, which I love. Chris Rock is going to, I think he'd be an interesting conversationalist. Hudson Williams, flash in the pan. I enjoy him, but he's getting his own speaking thing, so whatever. But there is a couple of movies I'm interested in, and it's a 4.5-hour drive. So I have to decide if I want to say, I mean, of course, press credentials closed, I think, at the end of last month. So, but I got to see if I want to sneak up there in September for that. That's if I don't go to LA. We'll see what happens.
All right, then.
That's it. All I have, my friend. Anything else?
That's all I have for now.
Well, as always, we appreciate you tuning in every Friday to Entertainment Exposed. Please tell your friends about it. Do the like, do the subscribe, all that fun stuff. You can join David on his daily political show, The David Reddish Show. Remind everyone they can find you on social media, my friend.
You can find The David Reddish Show on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at The Gay Magneto, all one word.
There you go. You can find all of Left of Straight podcasts at your favorite podcast distributor at Left of Straight Podcast, and follow me on social at Left of Straight. That's LEFTOFSTR and the number 8. We'll see you next Friday, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye.